My girlfriend broke up with me after I went to check on her when she didn't respond for 4 days. We lived in the same apartment complex, and I met her in September while walking my dog. We instantly hit it off and started spending almost every day together, enjoying weekends full of fun activities. By November, I was falling for her. She had warned me that from mid-November to December 15th, she would be unavailable due to work and other commitments. I thought that meant we wouldn't see each other as often, but I didn't realize it would also mean almost no communication. She stopped texting me things like, "I miss you," or "good night," and the time between our texts grew longer. After a few days, I asked her if everything was okay, both with her and with us. She assured me that we were fine, but she was just incredibly busy and had little energy for anything beyond work and sleep. She apologized for making me anxious and promised to try harder. However, 2 weeks passed without any significant time together. I saw her only a couple of times, just for brief moments. Eventually, my texts and calls went unanswered. The last time we spoke, she mentioned that if I got off work early on Saturday, we could hang out. When I called her that day, it went straight to voicemail. Later, as I walked my dog, I noticed her apartment lights were off. I texted her, saying I hoped she was getting some good sleep. I didn't hear back for 3 full days. Her car hadn't moved, and the lights in her apartment remained off. I started to get worried, knowing she struggled with health issues, was stressed from her job, and showed signs of depression. I texted her again, just wanting to check in. When I still didn't hear back, I contacted her best friend. She told me she had last heard from her the previous week. I expressed my concerns and said I was thinking of checking on her. Her friend encouraged me to do so, telling me that 4 days was enough space. So, on my lunch break, I went to her apartment, anxious but wanting to make sure she was okay. Her apartment was still dark, and the blinds were closed. I knocked on the door and rang the doorbell several times, but no one answered. I even knocked harder, hoping she would hear me from inside. Finally, I saw a text bubble appear on my phone. "I am on a freaking client call. Stop knocking." I immediately left, feeling terrible, and texted her an apology, explaining that I was just worried about her. The next day, I texted again, acknowledging that I had overstepped by knocking so much, and apologizing for making things worse. A day passed without a response. I talked to my father, who pointed out that her lack of communication wasn't fair to me. He suggested that I try reaching out again, as it might bring some clarity. So, I sent her a text, saying I would stop by in 5 minutes to talk, as it was important. I rang her doorbell again, but no one answered. Feeling defeated, I went home and wrote her a long message, expressing how much I cared about her, and how her lack of communication had made me feel ignored and unimportant. I explained that I needed some form of contact, even just a simple text, to know she was okay. I emphasized that it wasn't an ultimatum, but that I needed to hear from her. The following morning, I received a long text from her at 4 a.m. She explained that she had been working 14-hour days and was exhausted afterward, barely managing to get through her work. She apologized for not responding, but criticized my actions, particularly coming to her door while she was working, as inappropriate. She also pointed out that her car had been moved, signaling that she wasn't just ignoring me, but genuinely hadn't wanted to be contacted during those times. She reiterated that she had told me she would be unavailable, but I hadn't understood what that truly meant. In one swift motion, I had ended the relationship I cared deeply about because I couldn't manage my anxiety or exercise patience. 11 days later, my previous post had gained a lot of attention, so I thought some people might appreciate an update. After receiving her message, I apologized, acknowledging that my anxiety had taken over. I told her I was starting therapy to work on my issues and asked for clarification on where we stood. I also said I wouldn't contact her further until I heard back. It's now been 12 days, and I've received no response. These days have been incredibly tough on my mental health. Yesterday, I decided it was time to move on and give myself closure. I've realized some important things through this experience. First, being unavailable doesn't mean completely disappearing for days and ignoring the person you're seeing. I did nothing wrong by going to check on her. I acted out of care and concern, just as I would hope a partner would do for me. No one is too busy to send a simple text in 4 days. I also learned that I need to take care of myself and assert my boundaries. I recognized my anxious, codependent tendencies, which I need to work on. I also see now that there were red flags I ignored in the relationship. Over the past 12 days, I've focused on self-care. I've been meditating, journaling, practicing gratitude, and getting back into the gym. I also talked with her best friend again who hasn't heard from her either. It's clear that the silence isn't personal to just me, which has made me feel a bit better. Still, I'm upset about the way I've been treated. I know she's going through a tough time, but I have my own needs too. Leaving someone who cares about you completely in the dark for 12 days when you live just a few minutes away is unkind at best. I still don't know what's going on in her head, and I may never know. I would still be open to talking, but it's unlikely I would take her back. I deserve better. Ultimately, I've learned that I can find closure on my own, take care of myself, and still love others. I wish I could be over her right now, but I know it'll take time. Thank you to everyone who reached out with kind words and support.